Hello, my name is McMahon. I'll tell you more about myself at the end of this film. Some federal courts have determined that I'm an expert in matters of employment and disability. I'll let you decide that. Me, I don't believe in experts, but I do believe in expertise. I know I have some of that. I do have a message for employers here in America's heartland that I believe can make a substantial difference to your success, your image, your profitability. So who I am, that's not important. But I have to say, though, I think it's worthwhile. I flew here to Wisconsin today to speak to you about the new ADA Amendments Act 2008. Its effective date was last January 1st, 2009. Then I'm going to take the rest of my time to explain to you how you can make the ADA largely irrelevant while still furthering the goals of your organization. You know, the ADA, it's no small matter. It was the most important piece of civil rights legislation since 1964. It was President George H. Bush's greatest legislative achievement, and it's having its 20th birthday in July of this year, 2010. I can reduce everything you need to know about the ADA to just 2 sentences. All personnel actions must be unrelated to the existence or consequence of disability. Think about what an ambitious task this is. Reflect on that for just a moment. All personnel actions must be unrelated to the existence or consequence of disability. Okay, here comes the second sentence, but this time I'm going to need a crowd. I've selected this rather thick law text. Imagine this is the human resources policies and procedures where you work. I know back home in Richmond, mine are just about this thick. Here comes sentence number 2, but to do this right, you have to take the policies and procedures in your hand and hold it up high and repeat this sentence. Everything in this book may be subject to reasonable accommodation. Reasonable? That means that the accommodation is not an undue hardship, not a significant difficulty or expense. So remember now, the ADA is not just about hiring or firing, it's about all personnel actions. Now you're an ADA expert. Okay, now it's time to make you an expert on the ADA Amendments Act of 2008. You know, the action really picked up in Congress in the fall of '08 about final passage. There were unprecedented and very intense deliberations and debates between the U.S. business community and the community of people with disabilities. But in the end, the amendments passed both houses of Congress and by wide margins. The amendments restore the original spirit and intent of Congress in passing the law in 1990. But what are the specifics? First, the amendments remind us that the ADA is really a remedial statute and insist that the courts interpret the term disability broadly, not narrowly. So, in deciding if McMahon is a person with a disability, the court can give no consideration to mitigating circumstances. This means that you have to make a decision about me based upon my naked state. Now, that's a pretty unpleasant thought, so I use the term just for effect, but really, in deciding I'm disabled, you have to strip me of all of my medications, assistive technology, prosthetics, orthotics, therapies, and so on. You have to assume that there is nothing mitigating the effects of my impairment. Next, in deciding if McMahon has a disability, well, what if my condition is episodic? Something like multiple sclerosis, where the symptoms ebb and flow. Or what if my condition is like cancer, except the cancer is in remission? You must completely disregard that. You must think of my impairment as currently active, in full bloom, if you will. Finally, the amendments instruct the courts to place their focus on this question. Did discrimination occur? Not on this question. Is the charging party a person with disability? Now, those are really very, very powerful changes. And what is the net effect of all this? The amendments will dramatically expand the number of people protected by the ADA. As Congress initially intended in 1990. The immediate focus of the courts and the EEOC will not be on establishing the eligibility of the complainant, will be on examining whether or not discrimination did occur. And that's a big deal. And now you're informed about the amendments. Before we leave the legal arena completely, I'd like to offer you what I call 2 of McMahon's ADA quick hits. Here's quick hit number 1. If you'd like to avoid problems involving the ADA and matters of addiction, establish yourself as a drug-free workplace and try to institute a high-quality employee assistance program where you work. Here's quick hit number 2. If you'd like to avoid problems involving the ADA in matters of worker compensation, try these 3 suggestions. Number 1, purge from your human resources policies and procedures any inflexible return to work rules or standards. Number 2, establish a first-rate disability management program in your place of business. And number 3, don't turn over the management of injured worker issues completely to your worker compensation carrier. Stay involved in the management of those issues just as thoroughly as you would manage any other area of your operations. In our next segment, we're going to turn our attention to things that you can do to make the ADA almost irrelevant.